But chair and co-chair, vice chair, we have quorum as soon as we get our live streaming and our recording all set. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
I don't know what he did, but it looks like it is.
Today is Technology Tuesday.
Okay, it's recording.
Oh, yay.
So we can begin.
Awesome. So we have recording and we have quorum. So Chair Latin, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kelly. So I called this meeting to order at 4:11 and asked Rick to do roll call to establish quorum.
Good morning, Task Force. We'll now begin the roll call, starting with Member Christy Fernandez.
Here.
And Chair Lance Latin. Gotcha.
Here.
Member Alicia Logan. Member Alicia Logan, are you here? Nope. Okay. Member Maggie Wells.
Here. Here.
Member Antonio Gabar. Nope. Member Nicole Witkowski. I see you. I got you. Perfect. Member Linda Kyle. Member Travis Reines. Member Sherry Reed. Member Sandra Ayers. I
Present.
see you. Perfect. Member Sherry Spencer, I see you. Member V Peabody. Perfect, I see you. Member Natalie Koo Callahan. No? Oh, she's here? Gotcha. Member Natalia, can you confirm that you're present? Okay. Member Thomas Brooks. Member Thomas Brooks, if you're here, would you acknowledge that you're present? Okay. Member, perfect. Member Tamara McCord. Member Meriden Fortune. I see you. Perfect.
I'm here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And member Justin Petrillo. Nope. So that with 10 members and present, Chair, we do have quorum.
So can we share the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair Latin, for the record, as we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge the Indigenous people whose traditional homeland, where we are presenting from, and where people are joining us from, in what is now the state of Nevada, the Numa, also known as Northern Paiute, Nuwu, Southern Paiute, Washishu, or Washoe, and Nuwe, Western Shoshone. As a reminder, the task force reserves the right to take agenda items out of posted order. Items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time, and items may be combined for consideration. Should we consider an issue with quorum, we will consider action items first. And just as a reminder, members, please mute your microphone unless you're speaking, and you can click the raise hand feature to be called on during the meeting. And now we will move to public comment. Moving to public comment period 1. During the agenda item, public comments will be taken regarding any item appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken on a matter discussed under this item until the matter is included on the agenda as an item on which action may be taken. There's a limit of 3 minutes. Public comment number 2 will be at the end of this meeting. We'll provide an opportunity for a public comment on any matter within the Teacher Recruitment and Retention Advisory Task Force jurisdiction, control, or advisory power. Is there any public comment in Carson City?
There is no public
comment in Carson.
Thank you. Rick, is there any public comment in Las Vegas?
Chair Latin, there is no public comment here in Las Vegas.
And is there any public comment submitted via email?
There are no current public comments submitted via email.
All right, so moving on to item number 3, information. The minutes have been provided previously. You should have had time to review prior to this meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 26th meeting.
I make a this is Dr. Spencer. I make a motion that we approve the April 26th. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Minutes for this meeting.
Christy Fernandez, I second that.
Thank you. Those in favor of approving the minutes for the April 26th meeting, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, updates on recruitment and retention work. Kelly Lynn, you can go ahead and proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Latin. This is Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. So just a few updates on some of the recruitment and retention work that we have been doing. 2 years ago, this group asked for a statewide teacher exit survey, and we're given $1 million for the development and implementation of that survey, along with the working condition survey. We convened 2 work groups to develop and begin the work on them. And we are pleased to announce that the exit survey is in its final stages. It will go through its last review and editing before final approval. We have contracted with American Institute of Research, AIR, to be our third-party vendor for the implementation of that survey. We've also contracted with them for the working condition survey, and that work group has been convening and has been going through categories and sentence stems and what they want to see and outcomes and how data should be used and what questions we should be asking. So we are thrilled to be working with AIR on that survey as well. Both of them hopefully live by next year or through next year, by the end of next year. So congratulations and a big pat on the back for helping move that work forward. Additionally, we are convening a stakeholder group to redesign the licensure webpage in order to make it more enticing and engaging and easier to navigate, to help bring those teachers in and to help retain those teachers and educators when they visit our site and work to get their license and to keep their license. And so that work will start, you'll be able to see some of that work as well, as our website is beginning to be updated within the next couple of weeks. And so you'll see a lot of those changes in those rollouts as well, hopefully using licensure as a recruitment and retention, the web page as a recruitment and retention tool. And so now, Chair Latin, if you'll allow, I will turn it over to our new Deputy Superintendent, Christy McGill, up in Carson City, to see if she has anything that she would like to add on the work of the recruitment and retention.
Good afternoon, Chair Latin and all the other members. Again, for the record, my name is Christy McGill. I am the new Deputy Superintendent for Teacher Effectiveness and Family Engagement. It's an honor to meet you all, and I'm really excited to get together and work together. I have reviewed the plans and some of your notes, and one of them I wanted to update you on is that we are going to be beginning a contract around a marketing plan. We did get a contract with the AB agency to look at recruitment and retention. So the first piece is we really want to do a better job of getting all of the pathways and supports for adults now that may be wanting to rethink their professions and move into teaching. We also want to look at the current recruitment strategies and retention strategies. But one thing that I read from this group that you all had some interest in rebranding the profession. So I was wondering, how do you want to be part of this marketing plan? Is there a few of you that would like to volunteer? Do you want Kelly, Lynn, and Kat and myself to keep you up to date? I'm still learning about the involvement of this group, but I know that this idea came from this group. So I wanted to make sure that before we got started, we paused to make sure that we move forward in the direction you were hoping. So I'm going to pause there to see if there's any discussion.
This is Spencer for the record. Oh, dog barking, sorry.
No worries.
Is this the part in when we talked about having, advertising or what's the word that I want? Because we talked about like having, your billboards up and advertising and trying to recruit that way, and that idea was knocked down. So is this part of that when you say rebranding, or are you saying rebranding as in we change the logo and the theme and that kind of stuff?
Well, what we thought we would do is work with the AB agency on a marketing plan. And so one of the marketing that I noticed in the notes was to get people interested or reorientate them to teaching. And so that's that kind of rebranding. It may include, like you said, billboards, those kinds of things. What we thought we would do is build out the plan. We have a limited budget, but what we could do is then go out and look for those budgeted items and bring things on in a prioritized manner. For example, we really want to make sure that people know about all the different pathways we have for current adults that may have a bachelor's to move into teaching. So we really want to get that out. But there's those other pieces about, the military did this after Vietnam. They rebranded that. So they went from having a, mandatory draft to people enrolling because of that rebranding. And so there may be some room for that, about looking at the teaching profession in different lights, different representations, and really making sure that we're inclusive in our message. So that can be part of the marketing campaign. I just want to make sure, again, these recommendations came from this group, and I want to make sure that we do a good job of capturing all of your vision.
Well, I would like either to be informed or help with that, because I have some ideas. I'm sure a company you hire has more ideas, but we've been working on that in our district for the last little while, so.
Absolutely. That's why, sorry, Christy McGill for the record, that's why we went with a professional company to kind of get the ideas from the field and from you all about what's important, and then they can do the, the actual graphic representation of what that would look like.
Latin for the record. I'm just trying to remember some of the conversations we had, and it seems like I recall this idea that a lot of people are getting out of the teaching profession, and some people feel like it's not a respected profession, or it's not something where you can easily make a good living. And I think that the goal is, if I remember our conversations correctly, is to try to turn that around a little bit so people are interested in that profession and pursue that profession and see some of the positives in that. Is that correct? Does anybody remember those conversations?
Spencer, for the record, that's what I remember, was that we talked about we needed to change what it looks like. And so a rebranding would be a great idea.
Christy McGill for the record. Well, thank you all. We will, as we move through this process, our team, Kelly Lynn and Kat, will make sure that we're all in communication. We'll run some of the proofs by you all, and you kind of just let us know the level of participation. But again, just wanted to give you all the chance, let you know the good news that we're moving forward on this particular recommendation, and we're excited to kind of build out that marketing plan as we move throughout. Also, know that marketing plans kind of go in phases. So when we get the results from the exit surveys and the climate surveys, that too will inform the marketing plan as we move forward. Thank you all.
And that concludes that item, Chair Latin.
Chair Latin for the record. So let's move on to item number 5. An update from Nevada Department of Education on the changes FB71 made to the task force. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Latin. Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. So this past legislative session, the legislature passed and the governor signed SB71, which made changes to the membership of this body and the name. So beginning in February, it will now be called the Nevada Statewide Teacher and Educational Support Professional Recruitment and Retention Advisory Task Force. No abbreviation yet. The application for the new membership has posted, it's flying. The press release went out yesterday, I believe, with a link. So those of you currently members who are serving your first term are eligible to reapply for reappointment. A lot of you on this screen, though, this is your last couple of times with us because your term will end next year in January. So you are not eligible to reapply. However, we will kindly ask and beg that you share the application with those in your district and encourage others to apply. Recommend those that you think would be great. The one thing that I've noticed when I've been talking to people about applying to serve on the task force, the number of members stays the same, so 20 stays the same, quorum of 10 stays the same. The difference is that it will be one person from each of the rural districts. So that could be a teacher or an educational support professional, not both, right? So there will still be one representative from Elko, Humboldt, Churchill, Lyon, Lincoln, Lander, et cetera. 2 from Washoe County. So it will either be the one person can be a teacher or a support professional, or a teacher and a support professional, right? So any combination thereof. And then same with Clark. Clark will still have a total of 3 members, makeup being teacher and support staff. So it won't be 3 of each position. It will be a total per district. So encourage both teachers and our educational support professionals to apply. That includes bus drivers, school police, custodians, paraprofessionals, nurses, cafeteria workers, maintenance, computer tech, everybody. And so we look forward to receiving those applications. It is open now. And we already have several applications. I think we're up to 12 total, which is really good. Application closes January 15th. So we have quite a ways to go, but we got started early, knowing that we were trying to fill both positions. And to the best of their ability, the legislature would like to appoint 10 teachers and 10 support staff, a support professional to make it balanced. So thank you so much. With no questions, I'll turn it back to Chair Latin.
For the record, we are now on agenda item 6, our work session. The expected outcome for this work session is to discuss the actions taken during the most recent legislative session in relation to previous recommendations and to begin working on recommendations for the June 2024 report. So Kelly Lynn, will you take that?
Absolutely. I forgot my water today. Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. So this was posted, so hopefully you had a chance to look over it. We took all of your recommendations that went in the last reports, and we provided the actual update after this legislative session. Great, that's okay. So you can see the exit survey. We received the $1 million for the 2 surveys. No additional legislative action was taken. And then the study of educator workload was your recommendation. There are 2 bills that will seek to address components of the workload. SB276 was signed by the governor, and that is the one to conduct various studies, one of which is a study of educator workload. And then kind of adjacent to that, AB276 is a advisory committee on safety and well-being of public school staff, right? So we know your workload is and your well-being and mental health are all interconnected. So we added that on there for you. You recommended a workforce data portal to include numerous items related to educational staff. The initial action during the interim session was that a letter was sent, and then no additional legislative action was taken during the session. The working conditions survey, again, the $1 million for the 2 studies, right? So it's not $1 million each, it's one to do both studies. Had action taken on it, so no further legislative action was needed because we already had the money to implement. And then the next page. It's okay.
Try to make it big enough for people to see. There we go.
There we go. Messaging and branding, there was no legislative action taken during the interim or during the legislative session. And then the Nevada Aspiring Educators Initiative, which again had a whole lot of supports in it, but from resume building to events to recruit teachers to a hotline. During the interim, a letter was sent, and then no additional legislative action was taken. There we go. You recommended expedited background checks to move certain high need areas such as teachers to close to the front of the line above recreational background checks. A letter was sent to speed that process up, but no legislative action was taken during the session. And then the other one was to invest the support to continue the ESSER funded initiatives and programs. And then AB 515 was signed by the governor that continued and I believe expanded the Incentivizing Pathways to Education grant program. Yep. Yeah, perfect. You recommended loans for in-state tuition for teacher prep programs. It was a 0 interest loan to allow people to get their teaching degree. A letter was sent, no additional legislative action was taken on loans for in-state tuition as the recommendation was written. You requested a study of teacher licensure testing requirements, and that is included in the SB 72 bill signed by the governor with all the various studies. You recommended dedicated state dollars to support the Home is Possible for Teachers home assistance program. Interim Committee on Education sent a letter, but no legislative action was taken. You recommended a loan forgiveness program for teachers who are currently in the classroom working, who have not been able to have all of their loans forgiven by the federal government. Again, Interim Committee on Education wrote a letter, and then no legislative action was taken during the session. You recommended changes to the PERS, Public Employee Retirement Incentive, for educators. There was a bill, SB 308, which changed PERS to 3 years vesting, intended for our foreign educators, which would affect everybody, but it died in the first House committee and didn't see any more legislative action taken on it. You also recommended a statewide minimum salary schedule for teachers. No action was taken during the interim session or during the legislative session. And then you recommended expanding the teaching and training, career and technical education programs. And AB 428 was signed by the governor. It's called economic development, but it was squeezed in there that starting in 2 years, every high school in Clark County must have a teaching and training program, and then all other districts can if they would like to. Then you recommended dedicated funding to provide administrator professional development in order to support their teachers, and no legislative action was taken. You recommended allocating additional money for hiring of educators, and we saw the governor sign SB 231. And then SB 442, we didn't have a specific recommendation to attach that to. It didn't really fit anywhere, but it kind of goes towards making it easier for licensing with reciprocity. So we attached it here so that we wouldn't forget to mention that the Teacher Mobility Act was signed by the governor as well. And then the next three, dedicated funding for mentor programs to support new teachers, district-led affordable housing funds to provide rental and housing assistance to teachers, and then dedicated district-led recruitment and retention efforts. Those three recommendations also saw no legislative action during the interim or during the session. And then the large one, which was support for the educator pipeline, retention incentives, career ladder options, and other resources. Again, that was included in AB 428. SB 339 was signed by the governor, which is another supplies and materials reimbursement grant for teachers. SB 291 allowed substitute teachers to be employed as student teachers to be employed as substitutes. And then SB 434 adds certain substitute teachers to PERS eligibility. And all those were signed by the governor. And that, I think that was the last one. Or was there one more?
And the Kathleen Gallen Collins, for the record, we do also have a new scholarship that is not for recruiting, it's for retaining. It is called the Teacher Advancement Scholarship, and we were allocated, I believe it is $2 million to help promote, to help provide funds for educators to go for their master's degrees. And so that we'll be putting information out on that in the upcoming weeks. So keep an eye out for that. When that comes out, we'll make sure we send that to you so that you have that information you can share with your colleagues. We talked about that in previous meetings about what are we going to do to keep our current educators, and they heard some of those comments, and they came up with the funds for this Teacher Advancement Scholarship piece. So that's good news for retention end of things.
Yes. And also, pat yourselves on the back. because while not all of your recommendations had action taken on them, it was 100% more than the previous report where no action was taken on any of the recommendations. So it was quite an improvement to go from 0 to all of those. So kudos, we're thrilled, and I hope you are as well. So the next part of the work session, what we did is to keep it separate. I created a document for note taking that just has the bills that had no action taken on them, right? This is what you recommended, some of them more than once. Some of them were from you through the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Cabinet or the Principal's Advisory Cabinet or the District Coalition or higher education groups that made the recommendations. And so the recommendation is on the left. In the middle is the specifics. Remember, we did recommendations and specifics and then little notes to give them more information. So our questions today are, we're going to go through the ones that had no action taken and then kind of have a discussion. Do you want to bring it forward again? Is it worth it? Do you want more research on it? Do you want to tweak it? Is it something that you think is valuable enough to bring forth on the next report to continue the recommendation? So the first one that I listed that didn't have any action taken on it was that the legislature should invest funding to sustain the educator workforce supply and demand portal currently being developed using the federal relief dollars. So that goes back to the workforce data portal to include average class size, access to experienced teachers, use of long-term subs, teacher workforce aides, licensed staffing ratios, teacher pipeline, and data regarding the NCHE educator prep programs. So how are we feeling about that one? Is that something you want to continue to work on and bring forward? Or are we going to say not at this moment? Feel free to unmute and jump in.
Kowski for the record. I feel that this one isn't as pressing as some of the others that might be on this list. Sorry, I've got a little guy in the background screaming. I apologize, but yeah, I just think some of our other points on here might be a little more of a priority, in my opinion.
How does the rest of the group feel? Are we in agreement with Nicole?
Chair Latin, if I may, Kathleen Gallen-Collins for the record. One of the reasons this recommendation was included in this is because right now we don't have this data on average class sizes. We don't really have data on access to experienced teachers, not in an easy to read format. That's a dashboard that's available for people to go to, nor is it live data. Having the workforce data portal would be able to let us have real-time data, more accurate data, on which to base recommendations to the legislature. Around when we had this conversation a year ago, and it's been a while, right? How are we going to get them to spend funds and give us more funds for programs if we don't have data around this kind of information? And I know Nicole's, I agree, it may not be as pressing as some of the others, but do we want to get rid of it?
Nicole Kowski for the record. Kat, can I change my answer?
Sure.
You're right. It has been a while since we talked about this. Thank you so much for the reminder. And I guess my question is if this is kind of commonplace in other states. A portal that has this data just readily available. But I'm with you, Kat. I thank you for the explanation. I think to move forward with other things that it would be important to have that data.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicole. Kathleen Collins for the record. There are other states that do have excellent data sources for their human talent data is what I call it, like their talent data. But it is something that is fairly new in the world of education to really focus on your adults in the system and have data on your adults in the system. But now with the nationwide shortages, and maybe they're thinking, oh, we need to pay attention to this. We need to be able to talk about this. We need to be able to make informed decisions around our talent. And so it is becoming more of a commonality than it was before. So those states that have the really high per pupil spending, they've had a lot of things like this in place for a while. Nevada has not. It's always been bits and pieces, or this Excel spreadsheet or that Excel spreadsheet. It's not something that is a live data portal. And obviously we wouldn't be sharing public, PII or personal information, anything like that, just data to help us make informed decisions to support our educators in the system. So should I change your answer, Nicole, to you want to keep this?
Please. I think this one's especially important for current educators too.
Yep.
So for the retention parts of our work.
So I'm putting a note on here, Kathleen Collins for the record, Nicole, just to make sure I'm capturing your thoughts correctly. I said, would like to keep this, make sure it is designed right to inform and promote initiatives that support educators. Does that make sense?
For the record, yes, that makes great sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the information.
No worries.
Okay. So your next recommendation that didn't have action taken on it was to provide state general funds to supplement the current funding structure to support the Home is Possible for Teachers program. Remember, we had 2 presentations from the Nevada Housing Division about the Home is Possible for Teachers and it being fee structured. So the number of teachers able to access funds and the amount of funds available would change from year to year. So your recommendation was additional funding to guarantee that there was money there to supplement and not supplant. So is this something that you would like to continue to bring forward or rework? And if so, suggestions for reworking?
Spencer for the record. So this one didn't get any no action at all. Trying
This
to decide.
got 0.
Yeah.
Yep, Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. There was no action taken during the interim session and then no action taken during the 2023 legislative session.
Because I'm kind of curious if, no action was taken is our best bet to move it down a little bit or to reword it, or, part of me wonders what they didn't like or understand or see the value in it.
Sherry, this is Dr. Spencer, this is Kathleen Collins for the record. I put in the notes here, no action taken, get feedback on it from legislators and see what we need to revise. Does that capture kind of what you were trying to get to there?
Yeah,
see if we can get some feedback on it.
Yeah, because when you look across the other states, there's lots of states doing something for housing for teachers. And so, makes me wonder if it wasn't worded correctly or if we need a little more research on our end that we can present it better. I'm not sure. I mean, I know of 3 new teachers in our area who are living with their in-laws because they cannot get into a house. And it's like, there's got to be a way that teachers can get into a house. That's just me.
This is Meridon Fortune. Sorry, Sandy, go ahead.
That's okay, Meridon. This is member Ayers. I'm just wondering if maybe the legislature didn't take action because of the housing market, and if that just where the housing market's at in general, not just at our state, but everywhere, if that just kind of scared them off because it's so crazy right now and they just didn't know what to do.
This is member Fortune. I have a question. We presented this twice to the legislature. Is that correct?
Nope, this past report was the first, it was on 2, it was on the June report and then included again in the February report. Yeah, so.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking if we'd tried it twice that maybe we do need to either do more research or I agree with member Ayers that maybe the housing market is fluctuating too much. They didn't know what to do with it. And I agree with Dr. Sherry that I think that we maybe more research, rework this whole thing.
Okay. The next recommendation, I put them together because they both had to do with housing. And this one was to increase the allocation of funding to education for districts to assist teachers in affordable housing. So you asked for money so that districts could build houses solely for temporary housing for teachers until they could get a house of their own, for apartment rental assistance, that type of thing. And again, this one didn't have action taken on it, either at the interim or during the session. So how do we feel about this one?
Probably, this is Spencer for the record, probably honestly about the same as, I mean, part of me wonders if legislation is looking at going, well, you know, we don't build houses for truck drivers or we don't build houses for whatever. So at some point we have to put in there why we have the need for it. Like what would be the need besides all the other people who have jobs and would like help getting in a house, besides the fact that teachers aren't paid enough. Sorry for my snarky.
This is member Fortune again. I'm kind of wondering if this didn't take traction because are school districts in the market to be landlords? I don't know if this is something maybe we should just drop. I don't know. That's my idea, is that maybe they don't want to put school districts in that position either.
This is member Ayers. Lander used to, you can still see we have housing that Lander County used to have as teacher housing, and probably member Fortune might be able to remember this better than me, but it's been at least 25 years that they sold that property because they wanted to get out of the business of being landlords. So I agree with Member Fortune. That might be where they're at, of deciding that we're in education and not in being a landlord. So that might, I don't know if that means that it needs to be recorded or not. I don't know.
This is Member Fortune again. I was in Lander when they did sell that property, and that was their philosophy. They didn't want to be in the landlord business. And here in Eureka, we do have 5 teacher housing, but you can live there 3 years and then get started. I don't know if this will take traction. That's just my personal view. I'm thinking, and maybe I'm stepping out of line here, but if they gave teachers more money, they could get into a house from people that are renting houses, that they are landlords, or they are sellers of homes. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base here.
Well, this is Maggie Wells for the record. You're definitely not off. And I've been kind of quiet here with a lot of the positions that they did not take on them. And I'm finding it difficult not to really just jump right in with you, because we're currently in a very, very contentious salary disputes here in Clark County, the 5th largest school district in the nation. So, and you're absolutely correct. If we paid teachers more, they would be able to afford housing. So we're dealing with that right now. And until that issue is adequately resolved, I think we're going to be in this position. There are lots of teachers that I talk to who are seriously consider going to the new casinos that are opening, who are hiring 6,000 people, which is, to me, abhorrent, because you didn't go to college to work at the casinos, but it's a good paying job. So I think we still have to address that in order to be successful. We just have to. And people all over the country would love to come here, but they simply cannot afford to. At least they feel they can. So that elephant is still in the room in Clark County, and it's growing. So you're absolutely correct.
Hey. Remember to keep our note taker, our lovely and wonderful Kat Collins, as our note taker. Remember to keep her accurate as she's typing notes. If she misses something, if we misunderstand it, make sure to correct us as we go. So the next recommendation was to allocate funding to the Department of Public Safety to support the prioritization of background checks for educator licensure. And again, remember, as we had this discussion, we wanted to make sure that it was above recreational background checks and not necessarily for those who are going for foster care or adoption or other quality valuable licenses that also need a background check similar to teachers. So this would just be to prioritize it above recreational background checks. And that was whether upgrade their systems or hire more personnel, just as a refresher to what the recommendation was. So again, we'll ask, bring forward with changes. Is it something that we want to hold off on?
Latin for the record. I think, I'm not super familiar with how bad this situation is, but it seemed to me like we heard examples of people that couldn't get hired because they couldn't get approved. So I think that would be something pretty important, where we go to hire people and then they can't get approved. So at minimum, I would think we want to keep that on the table.
Okay.
Spencer, for the record, I guess allocating funds to the Department of Public Safety, like we're saying that, but does then the Department of Public Safety think we're trying to tell them how to do their job? So then I worry if that's why maybe it didn't get looked at. But I thought that it was getting better. Like, we have a teacher who got his sub license, and it didn't take him, it was just a few weeks. And that was with him mailing it in and everything. So I'm just not sure. But I agree that it should be high on the list, because how are you going to have teachers if they're spending half a year waiting for their background check to come back? So I do agree it's important.
Alski, for the record, I also agree this one's important. This was a problem 8 years ago when I moved to Nevada out of state, and I think it's still a problem now. We have a couple ARL teachers this year, and 2 were our super subs last year. And they started this process in February, and it took until end of August for it to get passed and everything cleared. And then we have another employee who's doing iTeach this year, and she is, kind of at wit's end because she was delayed in Opal with her background check, and they said it was lost, kind of gave some other things to her, and she wasn't making any money for a second there. And so I think there's an issue there, because as soon as our admin get involved, it seems like it's expedited. So I almost think that people working for the Department of Public Safety need their task force to help address some of these problems, because I don't think they're staffed enough. But I do really think that this is a big issue, warding teachers away. I think they start and then they quit.
Hey.
Kelly Lynn, this is Christy McGill. I just wanted to add to this piece. So part of the problem too is that many of our districts elect to do their own background check. So not only is it the background check with NDE, it's also their own. And so maybe there could be some sort of agreements between NDE and the districts. I'm not sure what that would look like, but that is another level of complexity and layer that slows the process down.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Kathleen Collins, for the record. For example, in Clark County School District, they have their own police department that if you get fingerprinted there, they're one of the approved vendors in Opal. Then that fingerprint, that record gets sent to FBI and DPS, and when the report comes back, it comes back to us, and it comes back to the department if they elect to have it sent to us. But they have to tell the Clark County PD, that they want the report to also be sent to the Nevada Department of Education. So it's something that you still have to be fingerprinted, and the background checks still have to be run separately because it's a federal rule. But there is a possibility that if the department does fingerprint, that the fingerprint can be used for both of those background checks.
Hey. And if I remember correctly, this one actually had a letter sent during the interim session, but no additional legislative action was taken. So, okay, the next recommendation was to invest in the series of events and supports for aspiring educators. This was the really long one that was brought to this body by the NCHE, Teacher Pipeline Task Force. I think that's what they were called. For the hotline, career ambassadors to staff the hotlines, recruiting events paired with licensing labs, resume building and interview classes, and then financial aid resources, and then additionally like a pathways to teaching webinar. So how do we feel about this one?
This is Christy Fernandez for the record. I like it, especially because we're not just advertising the profession, but we're supporting them with the path to become educators. So I really like the idea of having labs, licensing labs, and helping them, build their resume. So I like it.
This is Christy McGill, and our team is going to be meeting with Dieter, who wants to support some of these efforts. So Kat and Kelly Lynn, maybe we bring some of these activities to Dieter to see if we could have a partnership or something of that sort so that we can actually get some of this going.
Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. That sounds great. I love that idea. Any other thoughts on this one? Okay. And the next one. To revise PERS by increasing the benefit percentage to 90% after 30 years. Thoughts? Rework, revise, let go? Keep as is?
Spencer for the record. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? But didn't it go down? Like isn't it less? Like, isn't it like 75% or something? Could be totally wrong, but it. Anyway, I mean, it would be nice, but there again, that's probably we can ask for that, but it's like asking for a raise. It's not necessarily going to happen. And I do wonder if where it says the Nevada Retirement Board needs to look at it, that's probably where you're going to get your most help for it.
This is Natalia Callahan for the record. I agree with you. So I believe at one point it was 2.75%, and then they went down to 2.5% each year. So if you go up to 90%, how would that be equitable for the existing teachers is my question.
This is Member Fortune. I am not sure how to answer your question, but I was thinking, do we really have a say in this? Isn't this a financial, like them paying out, like PERS paying out 90% to its retire or after 30 years of service? Doesn't that depend on financial, like how well PERS is doing? I don't know if we have that. Like we could say that, but what if they don't have the money to do that?
This is Kathleen Collins for the record. Would you like for us to do some research on this and see what the process is for PERS changes, figure out how it would impact economics, that sort of thing, and see what we can bring back to you?
This is Natalia Callahan for the record. Yes, that would be awesome and wonderful. I'm in Washington County School District, and this past year, starting in July, our teachers actually got a 0.167% salary reduction because of the increase of PERS. And so as a result of that, everybody had a decrease in their salary for the rising cost of PERS. And so if you raise it to 90%, I'm also curious as to how that would impact the budget.
I would love, this is Member Fortune again, I would love for some information also on how PERS operates.
This is Christy McGill. We can definitely work together to get you guys that research. The other piece you guys might want to consider too is I was reading some articles around this, and some teachers are asking for equity with first responders. So for example, in the state of Nevada, first responders get PERS at 20 years because it's a stressful job and situation. So, and there has been a whole lot of parity around, especially after the pandemic, around teachers being in that similar role. So that might be an avenue to explore to look at the equity around teachers and first responders in the Nevada system.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next recommendation was to provide funding outside of the general fund to create and manage a student loan forgiveness reimbursement program for teachers after they have taught 5 years in a public school classroom in Nevada and who continue to teach in the classroom. And then so this one was for those who are currently teachers, right? So it's not for new teachers entering a teacher prep program. It's for those of us that have student loans for our continuing education. And then for the portion that already can't be forgiven somewhere else. So thoughts and comments on this one? Shall we keep it, bring it forward again, rework it, or hold off? What are we thinking?
Spencer, for the record, I think we
Chair
keep it
Latin,
for
for the
now.
record, I would lean towards keeping it.
Spencer, for the record.
I heard Chair Latin say keep it, so Dr. Spencer, you're up.
I would agree with him. We keep it and we kind of go through it and look at it. And maybe we rework it, but keep it for now. We don't want to keep reinventing the wheel every time we have a meeting.
Okay. And our next one kind of goes along with that messaging campaign that we talked about earlier, and that is to allocate additional funds to NDE and districts for increased public branding and messaging that focus on changing the narrative around public education, promotes recruitment and retention of educators via advertisements with social media, news outlets, etc. So thoughts on this one?
Spencer, for the record, this is the one I was talking about. But then, is this what the assistant superintendent is talking about? Or is this, will this be something different?
This is Christy McGill. I think it's different. Oh, no, I'm sorry, but increase the public branding messaging that focuses, sorry, I was on the wrong one. Yes, this is the one that we hope to bring into the marketing campaign as well.
Spencer, for the record, then I say we keep it, because I just think getting it out there, letting people know that, you know, maybe there's some tension right now in some counties, but it isn't always like that. And it still is, well, in my opinion, a good profession. So if we're not out there with that message saying it, then it just goes away.
Thank you for that. Okay, our next one was to allocate additional funds. Oh, sorry, is everybody on board with that one, keeping that one? Okay, I didn't hear anybody else jumping in, so I don't want to assume. Okay, thank you. Allocate additional funds to implement a statewide minimum salary scale for licensed teachers to include an annual cost of living adjustment in line with the cost of living indices. This one had no letter written and no action during the interim session, and then no action during the legislative session. So thoughts? Keep it and rework it, keep it as is, or let it move to the wayside for now?
I feel like, Spencer, for the record, I feel like I talk a lot. I'm sorry. Well, I can remember being like really invested in this at the time, but now having been the president of our union and being in charge of the negotiations, I just wonder how the law, having it be a law, is going to affect each district, because, I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Excuse the barkies. But I just don't know, like, some districts might not can get to that. And now with some districts, it's like, I know a lot of districts got a good size raise this year. And so then you're going to have to move that up, and how is that going to work is more my question. I just don't know if that's a feasible thing for us to ask anymore.
This is Member Fortune, for the record. I agree with you. I think this is something that would be negotiated. So I think maybe put it to the wayside for now.
Lakowski, for the record. I kind of have a question about this one. For example, if there was a housing crash and the market changed and cost of living potentially was more manageable, would this potentially hurt us?
This is Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. We would have to put protections in place during the crafting of the bill if it were to be picked up so that that wouldn't happen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Do we agree with putting it aside for now? It's not, there's nothing wrong with putting it off to the side and then bringing it back, as we test the waters for public opinion and whatever. So. I see thumbs up on putting it aside. Today is not, it is totally technology trouble Tuesday, so. Okay. Next one is increase the allocation of funding to education to prioritize the use of those funds for increased administrator professional learning by building up district and building administrators to help their staff. How do we feel about this one?
All right, Spencer, for the record. After spending the last 4 months of negotiating with administrators, I, I don't see putting any money into it is going to help them. Like I don't know, in my district, they all thought we didn't have enough to do. And so I don't know how would you teach them to participate in professional learning to help them reduce the workload and improve work balance for themselves and their educators. Like, again, I'm always like, what does that look like? So, I mean, I don't know. That's just me. Somebody else chime in.
Chair Latin, for the record, I think I kind of agree in that sometimes when the administrators get pulled out to do training, people just get annoyed that, well, what are they doing now, kind of a thing. I'm not sure how that would look either. How would, if we're going to invest money and time into this, is that the best thing that we could do? Maybe there's something more important.
This is Christy McGill. Oh, sorry, echo. So if you guys, it's fine to put this aside, like you're saying, but if you are interested in learning a little bit about this, we do have data that shows an implementation of a multi-tiered system of support actually improves a tier 1 approach with better instruction, better behavior outcomes, those kinds of things. And what has been reported is that administrators have more time because they're spending less time in addressing behaviors as they come up. So we can, if you guys are interested in this, we can bring you that evaluation report that shows the decrease in administrators' time in implementing multi-tiered systems of support.
Chair Latin, for the record, I would be very interested in hearing that report.
Okay, thank you for that. Does everyone agree? Do we like that idea? I see nodding of heads. Okay, we'll bring more details back. Okay, the next recommendation was to increase the allocation of funding to education, to prioritize the use of those funds for the development and implementation of mentor programs, including but not limited to salaries and stipends, and then training for mentor educators. So once again, keep as is, keep and revise, set aside for now, and get more information.
Spencer, for the record, we've been doing something like this for the last few years in our district. We call them accelerated teacher, and I do get a stipend for it. And over the last 5 years, I can see a difference in how our professional development goes, and having, like, we just hired a new teacher, and so it's my job to like mentor him. And doing it, since I've been on this, I would learn to do it without like hurting his feelings or, you know, making him think, hey, I did all that lesson for nothing. So I do agree that a mentor program, but also like making sure that we know how to mentor, like that we had training on that, so that I wasn't just going in his room going, oh, that's a dumb lesson. Like I could go in and have him reflect on that lesson. So I think it's valuable. But again, when the state gives money, as we've seen with the distribution of it in other districts, it doesn't always mean it's going to where we think it should go to or where we thought it would go to.
Nicole Wachowski, for the record, I agree, Sherry. I think a mentor program, you know, statewide and funded correctly and teachers trained correctly would be really beneficial. Ours has really transformed in Carson City over the years, although it's still not where they'd like it to be. Our new hire coordinator is really disappointed in the funding that we have to give to the mentors, because it is so many hours of their time donated to help these new teachers. And so perhaps this kind of program would help support funding for current mentoring programs as well.
Chair Latin, for the record, I'm thinking about the smaller school districts, which I'm a part of, and sometimes it's really hard in the small districts to have a lot of support for mentors. And I'm currently mentoring a person who's an auto shop teacher, which I have absolutely no clue how to help him in a lot of the content areas. And so I think if we can fund those and we can increase the support for those teachers, we can get better resources. Because quite frankly, I'm not a good resource in this particular situation, but I'm, I guess, the best option. So I think that would be very important to keep those people there if they have that extra support.
Okay. Any final thoughts on that recommendation? Okay, moving on.
Sorry. This is Christy McGill. I was just thinking that this might be, I love this recommendation. It was one of my favorite ones when I read it, and Kat was telling me about it as well. I just think it has so much great potential. So we may want to really put on our radar any kinds of federal funding that are coming up for this particular purpose. And if we could have, districts that might be interested in this, the turnaround times for grants sometimes are pretty quick. But if we had, some of the partners that were willing to do that up front. So anyways, that's just, just thinking out loud here, that may be one way we can get some traction on that and get some federal funding instead of just looking to state funding.
Kelly Lynn Charles for the record, that would be awesome as well. Okay. Our next recommendation was to increase the allocation of funding to education and prioritize the use of those funds for district-led recruitment and retention efforts. So any thoughts on this one? Move it forward, revise, keep the same, or put it to the side for now?
This is Maggie Wells for the record. My only concern about this one, especially considering the situation that we're in now, is that it's a district-led recruitment and retention effort. I wonder about the oversight of who in the district would be making those decisions and how they would be prioritized. So I think it's an excellent idea. Obviously, we did to come up with this, but now I'm concerned with oversight of how those funds are managed. So that would be my concern. I think our state has good belief in our educators and that we want the best for them and have taken considerable measures to allocate funds. But once the funds get to the districts, I'm not so sure that those priorities are being adhered to. That's my only concern.
Spencer, for the record, excuse me. I agree that because you look at what they signed off on, and then you look at some of these counties and what literally had to happen in negotiations to get. So even without ours, there was some monies for this or that, and that's not where it went to. I mean, we definitely, our superintendent definitely didn't put it where the intended was to be. So I'm worried if you just say, give the districts more money to do this, again, we'd have to have something in place to make sure that that's where it went to. Like you said, some kind of oversight.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Okay, well, that concludes our conversation on those recommendations that didn't have any action taken. We will go ahead and make those ADA compliant and then post it with all of the comments so that everybody has it. And we thank you for that. So we have some work for us. I will turn it back to Chair Latin.
Sorry, having a little trouble. I'm on the road, so I apologize for the delay. Thank you so much for leading us through those, Kelly Lynn. And our next item, let me grab it here. Are there any other ideas for future agenda items? All right, I'll take that as a no. So we'll move on. Now, could we have the information on how to public comment be shared on the screen, please? Sorry, I think I muted again. Could we have the public comment instructions shown? There we go. So we are now in agenda item 8, public comment, period 2. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item on any matter within the Teacher Recruitment Retention Advisory Task Force jurisdiction, control, or advisory power. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on the agenda item as an item on which action may be taken. There is a time limit of 3 minutes. I will give a little bit of additional time to the public due to the delay in the live stream. At this time, is there any public comment in Carson City?
No comments in Carson City.
Is there any public comment in Las Vegas?
There's no current public comment here in Las Vegas.
And Rick, is there or was there any public comment submitted via email?
There are no current public comments submitted via email.
All right, so without objection, I adjourn this meeting at 5:40 p.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Good night. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Now I have to figure out how to turn it off. Do you guys have any?
Oh, we'll close it down from here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
Okay.
should be good. We'll close it down from here.
Thank
All
you,
right, thank
Deputy
you.
Attorney General Gardner. I think he already left too. I wanted to get him, Christy, before he jumped off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds
I
good.
think we'll